Good morning, everyone. Hope we're all doing well on this third day of the session of the event. Bright and early, 9 a.m. So we're all here to enjoy the last day of the conference. My name is Daniel Monteleone. I work for the European Agroforestry Federation on the project Carbon Farming Med, as well as other carbon issues. But my job here today is to introduce all the other speakers as well as lead the moderation. So first, I'd like to introduce Matthew Mall, who works at the European Environmental Bureau. It's Europe's largest network of environmental citizens organization, where he leads the policy work and strategy on the intersections between agriculture and climate. He coordinates the policy work in the Credible Carbon Farming Project, which I hope you all know what that project is. It's very important here. He co-leads the climate work of the EU Food Policy Coalition and is a member of the EU Commission's expert group on carbon removals. And he'll be discussing the why. Caterina Battello is an agroecology, grassland management, and livestock expert. She spent most of her career managing projects and providing policy support to the development of sustainable farming systems in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. She's an author of numerous publications on biodiversity management, grassland, livestock systems in different ecologies. And under her guidance, an important policy consensus has been reached among 164 FAO member countries who approved in 2019 the 10 agroecology elements, the engagement in developing a global agroecology working program, and TAPE, the global tool for agroecology performance assessment. And she'll be discussing the how. And then finally, our last two speakers, farmers, Eve Ducarouge is an agronomy and agroecology student in my favorite French city, Toulouse, working on a master's thesis in ver de terre production in research and experimentation in soil regeneration and health. And Jacopo Goracci is an organic farm innovation manager at Tenuta di Paganico. Sono italiano, ma mi dispiace. And a member of the expert group for technical advice on organic production of DG Agri. He's also secretary and board member of the Italian Agroforestry Federation, affiliated with European Agroforestry Federation, EUREF, and expert in agroecology, agroforestry, sustainable livestock systems. He manages a Mediterranean organic mixed farm, integrating crops, livestock, forestry, and local food chains. His work focuses on silvopastoral systems, biodiversity conservation, animal welfare, and territorial food chains, linking farm innovation with research and European policy discussions on sustainable agriculture. And they will be discussing the what and the where. So now, without further ado, I will introduce our first speaker, Matthew. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be opening this session today, and congratulations on almost making it to the end of the summit. It's been very full and long days. Hope you still have a little bit of brain capacity left for this session. The title of the session was Farmer-Led Innovations. I will not really be speaking about that. I will leave that to the farmers and the innovators. I would like to take a step back and look at why we are where we are today in terms of our agricultural landscape, and why that can't keep going the way it's currently going. Actually, I want to take a very big step back. So this is planet Earth, where we are right now. And planet Earth is bound to a physical reality and some laws of nature. And these are really non-negotiable limits, especially if we want to stay within what we refer to as a safe operating space for humanity. And so that brings me seamlessly to my second and last slide, which is an image that everyone I know for a fact has seen before. It was also part of the keynote speech on the first day of the summit, and I've actually seen it in a couple of the parallel sessions after as well. So I know you're all familiar with this picture. What it shows is, again, the real world physical limits, boundaries to our Earth system. And what this picture, this version of the picture in particular shows you, if you look at the green shaded element, is that agriculture, land use, is a major pressure, and in some cases, the main pressure when it comes to transgressing those safe limits for Earth. So clearly, business as usual is not an option. We are mining our assets, and with that, we're actually undermining the foundation on which agriculture is built, and the long-term viability of agricultural activity is dependent. And already today, agriculture suffers the consequences of climate change. We're all aware of that as well. Extreme weather, erratic weather patterns, that exacerbate the degradation of our ecosystems. So tackling the issue of climate change, pollution, building resilience is really in the sector's best interest. I don't really have to tell you that because that's the reason that brings us all together here, of course. Just last week, the European Scientific Advisory Board on Climate Change published a report on agriculture and climate change. It looked at mitigation and adaptation. The conclusion was, on both elements, we're not doing great. Agriculture, the sector is lagging behind on both those elements, mitigation and adaptation. Now, to act on climate, to mitigate climate change, the main thing we really need to do is reduce emissions. We need to reduce them by a lot, and we need to reduce them fast. In the EU, 90% of direct agricultural emissions come from three main sources or activities. First, there is methane, mostly from direct emissions from animal rearing. Second, there is nitrous oxide from fertilizer use. And third, there is CO2, which is emitted by the peatlands that we have degraded and drained, mostly for the purpose of doing agriculture in the EU. And these emissions, overall emissions from agriculture in the EU, have been stagnating for about 20 years, the last 20 years. And if we look at the research done by the EEA, what we can see is that with the current measures that are in place and the planned measures, we're nowhere near achieving the reductions that we need to achieve for agriculture to stay within the pathway to bring the EU to climate neutrality in 2050. So something needs to change because we're not going to meet climate neutrality in 2050 if agriculture doesn't change. There are many ways of dealing with these emissions, but I believe that good ways of dealing with them are less plentiful. The temptation of resorting to technological solutions as a panacea, a solution for everything, is extremely strong. There's solutions that hold the promise of business as usual, just a tweak in the process, the key to even further intensification, better efficiency, larger scale. And some of these solutions can be part of the answer, but on their own, they will fall short. And they will fall short because they're partial fixes. They're partial fixes plastering over the cracks, creating the illusion of progress, while in fact, what they do is pave the way for, in some cases, unexpected, and in most cases, unwanted, long-term consequences, whose financial and societal cost will far exceed whatever investment cost there was to begin with. And they are what brought us to where we are today. And I believe there's a person that is considered quite an intelligent person overall in history that said we cannot solve today's problems with the same ideas as the ones that brought us into this problem. So on their own, these technical solutions, they will fail because they do not address the issues at core. They instead further lock us into the inherent unsustainability of a system that's built on mountains and rivers of external toxic inputs and so-called ghost hectares of deforested land. So how do we drive back these pressures? The good news is that the right way of dealing with these emissions will also help us achieve the other environmental and societal objectives. Nature-friendly farming is not an oxymoron. There are farmers all over Europe that are already showing us how to do it. There need not be trade-offs between improving the health of our environment, the stability of our climate, the well-being of our animals, and the prosperity of our farmers and consumers. And studies actually show this. We can feed Europe with healthy and sustainable food and produce the inputs for a bioeconomy, all while drastically reducing our negative impact on the environment and the climate. So we don't just want emission reductions and we don't just want enhanced carbon sequestration. We want all of this in a context where we reconfigure our agri-food system and restore our natural environments, our water cycles, our biodiversity, so that farming becomes resilient and maintains the natural resources it depends upon to be viable in the long term. So climate measures do need to be part of a bigger picture in which we address not only how and what we produce, but also how and what we consume, where our food environments and our food systems shape us, are shaped to nourish us and the planet back to health and away from disease. It is necessary to make sure that there's policy that is conducive to those changes. And it's fine to talk about incentives to achieve it, but really sustainability should just be the baseline for how we do farming, really. So from a policy perspective, what we need is, first of all, an ambitious and binding target for reducing emissions from agriculture, as well as enhancing carbon sequestration in agriculture and land use, because without targets, we don't really know where we're going. Second, we need to fix policy that is currently broken. We have a common agricultural policy which continues to turn public money into harmful subsidies, supporting large-scale industrial animal farming, input-dependent agriculture, and conventional agriculture on drained peat soils. We are talking about potentially pricing emissions from agriculture and from land use, which can be a very good environmental policy measure. We've seen that in other sectors as well. It can work very well. But if you think about it, how weird is it to subsidize emissions with public money and then price them again to reduce them? I like to say that is a little bit like subsidizing the production of fossil fuels and then tax their use, right? Which is something that we're actually doing, so that's another thing to fix. Third, we need to regulate business. It's very simple. If a business can profit from it, it should also be protecting it. If you profit from it, protect it. Very simple, actually. And finally, as I've said before, any new or improved policy will have to aim for a holistic transition of the sector, and policy must not drive Europe down the path of intensification and external inputs, because that is an emission reductions path that will not be enough to ensure a resilient and healthy future for EU agriculture, where the environment, animals, and people can thrive. What will it look like on the ground? Fewer farmed animals overall, raising them in healthier, more natural ways, more connected to the land, eliminating our dependency on synthetic inputs, a more diverse landscape, a more diverse production, and peatlands that are wet again. It sounds pretty simple, and it is actually achievable with the right measures and the right type of action. And that is why I'm very happy to welcome to the stage Katerina from Agroecology Europe, who will lay out how a transition to agroecology can truly benefit society by shifting towards sustainable agriculture and land use. Thank you very much.
Yes. Where is this one?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for this beautiful speech before me. So I would like to introduce you to a very old and maybe known term, agroecology, that seems to be a little bit out of fashion now, but is exactly matches what the predecessor said to me, because it's the connection of many actions, is not taking actions in isolation that is important. So on the right side, you see the 13 elements that have been approved by all governments that make a sustainable, inclusive farm. And it is important not to take them in isolation. In isolation, they are beautiful. But the real idea is that they function if the synergies are enhanced through the farmers at farm level. I give you a very simple example. Number 3, soil health cannot only be taken alone if you don't think in terms of animal health. We know how much the soils are linked to the animals. 5, biodiversity. And think always above ground and below ground. We tend to think above ground. The biodiversity below ground is fundamental to sustain a sustainable production. 6, synergies. Different people, different systems connecting, diversified. 7, economic diversification. A stable farm is a farm that is less and less dependent from only one income, only one activity. It's much easier for the farmer to have simple activities. It is not sustainable on the long term. Maybe you have enough profit in 1 year, and then the next year you have all the consequences of climate change, of an event. And we see this more and more. On the left side, the idea of transition, the lower level starts with making efficiencies. And we still have a lot of efficiencies to do in this world. We have 30% of waste in food, 46% of waste in many fertilizers and even pesticides. So there is a water. Water is 50% of water in agricultural practices is wasted. So the first step to move towards agroecology is thinking efficiency. But good farmers already do it, and also because pressure of economic. So the second level is substitution, less and less chemical with more and more biological, nature-based input. And the real agroecology starts with a third level, which is redesigning, thinking that trees, animals, different crops, different genetics that is more rustic and more resistant to shocks, are part of a sustainable system that is sustainable today and tomorrow. The fourth level, and we tend to take them separate, but now even the EU starts understanding the importance of the connection between farmers and consumers. In the end, a consumer can influence, we have many examples, a consumer can influence a farmer by saying, in the next 6 months, this is what I want to consume. And then easily a farmer can adapt. So planning together, working together at territorial level is very important, as well as thinking big, the food system. Agroecology, again, we just spoke about this. It's amazing. It's not more discussed in the new PAC, in the new negotiations for the new PAC, but it's still there. A lot in 2 years ago, 1,300 scientific publication. So it is a reality. Movement, people, millions of people doing mixed farms and valorizing farms through diversification, direct selling, food processing, agroforestry. So it is there. We can say what it is defined by the principles, but is alive in reality with the farmers. And policies. I want to bring to your attention that in Europe, we have a number of policies. We have the French policy at national level. We have quite a lot of regional policy, Région Wallonne, in Switzerland. We have in Catalonia, in Sicily. Some more are coming under discussion into different regions. So it's something that is more alive in Europe at regional level, at local level, rather than at national level. But please remember that at the world level, there are over 35 national policies on agroecology, which are very strong in Colombia, in Tanzania, in Kenya is regional and global and national, Vietnam. So what does it mean? It means that in a way, the fact that we have to combine environment and agriculture is still alive in policies throughout the world. To respond to your global challenge, we are still capable of thinking global and finding global solutions. Quickly, there are many examples in Europe. We have published a number of publications. Agroecology is different in every region, in every country, is very local, and has different connotation. Okay, first word I wanted to explain were the principles and the connectiveness of those principles. The second word that I would like to bring to your attention is permanence. Think about that a good farmer and a good system need to think in terms of permanence. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but sooner or later, the carbon credits are unable to create this permanent change that we need. We cannot think, we can do policies for 5 years, 10 years, but we cannot think to change the world and to reduce the emission and to sequester carbon only in a short period. We have to think about long-term solutions. The third point I would like to make to you is long-term stability. We tend to, again, to take carbon credits, biodiversity, resilience, income as separate problems to be solved. A farm and a territory that is sustainable over a long term has to take all of them into account. It's difficult, it's a challenge, that's why we don't do it, but that's what we have to do. The last point, so principles, permanence, long-term stability, is agroecological competitiveness. That's a word that is an obsession now in Europe, but has very often a negative type of competitiveness. We can think in terms of agroecological competitiveness, and we can ask Europe to include in their policies and in their subsidies, and I agree very much about the concept of subsidies, are they important or not, to be given, for example, in terms of revenue. Here are a few proposals: trade rules, individual and collective farm diversification, organic and quality premium. Remember that there are many organic farmers, many agricultural farmers who are already doing the right things, and they should be sustained and receive continuously a premium. Public procurement is something that is very much under discussion and can help small farmers, local farmers, territorial farmers to connect directly with their consumers. And then addressing the cost aspect. In this moment right now, we see rising cost aspect of fertilizers and things like that. What do we think? Providing subsidies, helping the farmers who have to spend more for their fertilizers, does not make sense. It's not sustainable. So let's invest in serious rural infrastructure for agroecology, knowledge, and different concept of joint machinery, buying and seed, and joint digital infrastructures. Thank you. Over to you.
So hello, everybody. So I'm going to present this first case study. So my name is Eve. I'm an agroecological and agronomy student. And I'm going to present a bit more about Vers de Terre Production. So it's a French SMI created by farmers for farmers of about 20 people. And it's located in Normandy. And they're engaged in agroecological transition and soil health. And it's divided in 4 parts with training, dissemination of open source knowledge, but also consultancy support and research and development project on a European, national, and regional scale. So how does Vers de Terre give farmer access to digital tool for free and farmer advisory services on soil health and agroecology? And how do they revive enthusiasm in agriculture among young people? So that's the question I'm going to answer for you today. Read. Yes. So more than carbon farming, the agriculture we support is agroecology and all its variation. So we're not only going to talk about carbon storage, we're going to talk more about how to seek experiment solution for farmers tailored to their farming system and their territory. So the idea is to maintain the yields and greatly reduce inputs, but also the agriculture we support produces profits such as improve the soil and make it fertile, but also regulate climate, water, and biodiversity, allows food autonomy with high nutrient values, produces renewable energy and biomaterial. So more than a financial product that we can sold and buy, the carbon is the fuel of living and the base of living soil and agroecology. So the learning method we put in place is presented in this pyramid, where we highlight and put more emphasis on learning by doing and teaching by others, without leaving out the other aspect, but presenting them in another format. So this gives us time saving and improved memorization. So how do we present the cycle of creating knowledge? So first of all, it starts with knowing how, with practical experiences where Vers de Terre interviews pioneer farms on their practices and what they put in place to all type of agriculture. So it can be livestock or also crop production. And this new knowledge is here to share with other farmers, university, SMEs, or researchers. And once this is put in place, it's about making bioavailable those farm portraits. Sorry, missed the slides. It's not connected, computer and screen. Um, so as I was saying, this cycle of knowledge, so knowing how it experiences, once we are on the fields, we go back to making bioavailable those farm portraits to give out transparency on the failures, the success, but also the costs that the farmers went through, but also the triple performance wiki, which present the technical practices and other tools. And the idea is to go back to fields. So we get field knowledge, we go back to it to be able to be used by others on their own system. But we need to keep in mind that it's important to know when to do nothing and take the time to observe. Observation is important to be able to get knowledge on the landscape functional dynamics, but how your system works as well. And the idea is to imitate the natural dynamics such as forest or landscape, to get the holistic approach. But also, it also has an impact on the mindsets, being able to be aware of the decision you're going to take and when to take it, such as fertilization, but also see what the human impact had on its system and being able to readjust with modification if needed. So observation and fieldwork is the key. So I'm going to present a more concrete example of an action research. So it's a data approach by the CIRAD. So this picture presents first step, which is the experiment plot. So it's on the left. The idea is to have conditioned and controlled environments in labs to be able to see what could work. So this could be used also by, be done by students, an internship. Once this is put in place, the second step is about pioneers farms and use those criteria in the field and see if it actually is being able to be applied in those territories and those types of farming system. But also, once this is put in place, it's about dissemination of innovation through existing networks. So through cooperatives, farm groups, to inspire farmers one another about their own system. So this example had showed that the CIRAD participate to help Vietnam as a second exporting country of rice within 10 years by taking out those agronomic blocks and disseminate that knowledge. But also, if we go a bit further back into in France, we have the living soil market gardening with no-till, which its network has spread through regional, but then to a national scale in France. So it shows that it had a greater impact on another scale level. So if I go a bit further in explaining the method that's behind all of this, it's a 5-step method where we start by raising awareness. So that goes through thousands of videos on YouTube channel. And that has been also translated in most spoken language. Then we have the training that goes through open courses or local group and forums. Online courses also makes farmers able to follow those courses whenever they have time. So it's a more personalized time frame rhythm. But then again, afterwards, it goes on experimentation, where we can have action research, the example I presented beforehand, and also living labs, but participatory research, farmers networks, and pilot farms, followed by experimentation. And all that knowledge that's been created on field is going to be documented through agroecology observatory or the wiki, the triple performance wiki that's translated in English as well, and it's a platform on agroecology. And all these implementation is going to be also used with support. So guidebooks, consultancy, discussion system, peer learning. So it's a loop, and it goes a feedback loop on how to make it better. The main stakeholder groups targeted are teachers that then will teach to students that are probably a lot of them, some of them are going to become farmers, so also farmers, and facilitator, adversary technician, and researchers. So four main groups that's targeted. And the two main free digital tools and channels are the YouTube channels, where the first stage of the rocket was already launched at 6 million views on leading agronomy channel. And also the triple performance wiki that has already 50,000 views per month on the agroecology platform. So to end up this first case study with a even more concrete presentation is practical example of the e-learning. So this e-learning course it's a creation of a toolbox of carbon farming in 4 languages. So English, German, French, and Dutch. It's about farm field knowledge of peatland restoration filmed directly from expert and innovative farms in Ireland, but also is to join knowledge of institution practical examples and case studies to inspire other farmers. And it's bottom-up innovation to inspire the new generation, but also other countries, with the idea of aiming at the young generation and future farmers, because throughout those videos, you have testimonies of farmers and pioneers of agroecology that showed that their changes came from their son and daughters, the next generation that's gonna take over afterwards. And that helped them realize and accept the transition by their children. And so if we want to change agricultural system to a more agroecology one, we need to aim the future of farming, which is students, the youth, farmers, advisors. And so we're happy to present this e-learning course that's 100% free in 4 languages, and that's going to be available next month. So if you're interested, you can scan this QR codes where you have an email address, and we can send you the link to be able to do that. So don't hesitate. So that's my part of this first case study. So thank you for listening, and I give the floor to the next case study.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for giving the floor, for having the opportunity to participate directly to trying to show what are my personal reflections and reflection from farm level about like the inclusion, possible and mandatory inclusion of food system into carbon farming. And so, because I am not a scared person, I'm almost curious. So we started years ago when life cycle assessment practice like being started to involve farmers. We participate to leader measure like 16.2 measures about. We were curious about our the application of life cycle assessment to our farm and who we are. I've been working and living in a farm in the central part of Italy, in Tuscany, in south part of Tuscany, so far away from all the city that you absolutely know. It's proved by the photos that I have a long story there. And as you can see from the land use, we are mostly represented by forest. So it's a long story farm, so it's more than 100 years. So we try to merge everything all together, especially heritage breeds with silvopastoral systems. So it's the reason why I'm part of the National Federation of Agroforestry, because we made agroforestry since 100 years. We tried like to study now, to enter deeper in the topics using Maremana heritage cattle breed that is co-evolved for millennia in these areas. So I just mentioned that we were curious, and so we participated to this project, and we try to study and analyze what happened to our farm, also comparing to other systems, because the peculiarity of our farm is that we manage the farm in a silvopastoral way till the slaughtering age. So we have no feedlot system. So we are our animals stay outside till the age of slaughter. That is almost 22 months. So we analyze a couple of points. One is the live kilograms as a functional unit of the animals, and the other one is the 180 grams of hamburger. And if we, for squeezing the time, these are the results of our silvopastoral system compared to the feedlot system. And you can see the global warming potential as a biogenic is absolutely the most important part for our system. And the total global warming potential is absolutely higher respect to a feedlot farming system, because it's normal, because we have more favorable average daily gain, feed conversion ratio, and so on. But if we move to the other on the right hand side, we try to compare what happened really to the agroecosystem. And so we include the carbon sequestration of the wood that had been used by animals for their living. And so we can see that from the table that is absolutely impactant respect to the other farms that use only a little bit scattered trees, grassland, and little woods only for reproductions and not for finishing, not for growing animals. And so we can say that we are carbon neutral till the hamburger. Instead, the other farm that is absolutely have a great part of carbon sequestration, but not reach the goal to be neutral as a system. So we have a lot of biodiversity, and my colleagues also predict it. And so I would like to share some numbers that I think could open our eyes more than the other things. And we are biodiverse livestock management in all Europe. These are our aggregate data from Eurostat 2024, data are almost 2020. And we can see that 57% of all the cattle breeds are reared in units, in farms with less than 20 livestock units. And from pigs, 93% of all the farms reared less than 20 livestock units in Europe. So we have this biodiversity, and we have to work with them, because we have not to see only the number of pigs, number of beef, but we have to see the number of farms. There is incredible differences, and we are working for the number of animals and not for the number of farms. So in this sheen, I think that we have to think about the farmers are food producer. That is important part. That's the main part of the story. And so we have to push for some measures that can highlight their multifunctional system, diversified system, in order to merge in the landscape the two main pillars that the farmers would like to have. That is the beauty of the system, the beautiness, and the productivity as well. So it's important part. And so carbon can be a co-benefit, and why not? So we can start from this point, but it's not only the unique and the final goal. Because, as Caterina just said, we have a lot of farms that have just been working in this direction. So what about additionality problem? So what's the baseline that we are going to face in this new challenge that we have to face, we do face? And I'm quite scared about the oversimplification. So one of my big question mark in the common agricultural policy is, how can I support biodiversity trying to standardize it? And it's so difficult to find one unique answer, because we need tailored solution at context levels. So it's not only my vision. We have papers, and slides are all for you. And there are important review that highlight that farmers made not one single practice in their agroecology vision. So how to manage, how to include them into a simplified models. And I think it's important. I come from agroforestry, and I'm on behalf of Europe now. So it's important, like, to highlight that this is a system that like sums complex the complexity of the system at all. So I think it's important to consider not as a carbon tunnel vision, but a more broad and holistic way to work, because also at farm level we can see that 64% of Europe farms have less than 5 hectares. So it's not only something that are like linked to animals, but also to land ownership and use. And this is an most important part of the story, that all the small farms are declining with different ratio in 15 years, and the unit farm that is increasing are the farms that have more than 100 hectares. So we have to speak their voice with their the will to maintain them alive and to reverse this trend. That is absolutely something that is impactant to our food production system. So think about these kind of farms have a lot of potential in certification, auditing, data collection, verification, and skills and everything. But the rest, what about the rest? What about the 65% of all the farms that have less than 5 hectares? So we have to include in the discussion. And putting some numbers about my farm, you can see that why I'm interested in carbon farming. Why? So with all this introduction, say why you're here. Yeah, because I'm curious. But not only because I work on a farm. I've been working on a farm, and where the more than 30% of all the average revenues comes from subsidies. And so it's something that, that the first pillar will disappear, and carbon farming credits maybe can be included in the discussion. So I have to be active on that. And so it's important to be present in the right tables and trying to work also in that direction, making your like a vision, path, and the ethics and missions very stable and fixed, but in order to make you alive, and it's absolutely important, because I'm scared to be the carbon offset of other sectors. I don't want to be the carbon offset of agribusiness interest. I don't want to be carbon offset of industrial sectors. I would like to make something that can be really sustainable. And I can make an example where I see some elements that are misaligning a little bit, like the goal with the actions. And for example, we made an important project about slaughtering pigs on farm, like to reduce the stress of the animals. Only for death, is not for business model. It's only for reducing the stress of the animals during transport and slaughtering. And so we compared this to conventional slaughtering. Yesterday I've been in Brussels in the Parliament, like to describe it, because it's so interesting also for Dan and Nansen was there. So it's something impactant. It's something that is working also in livestock strategy in the future revision of the CAP. But if you think something like that, and if you see that there are incredible differences in animal welfare and no problems in meat quality and meat safety for sure, but if we analyze on a carbon vision, we can see there never generate so impactant carbon sequestration. So we can like mention some decrease in live animal transport, some less kilometers, and that's important. But what about the real impact on these credits and this carbon farming system? So it's less impactant than the final result that is really important. And last, then I go to the messages, final messages. We have analyzed that we need something that is tailored at landscape level, that can valorize what is just embedded in practice. And so I'm just scared about what I really predict a little bit, but about data standardization and large data set, universal metrics. So it's so difficult for my side that carbon accounting treats ecosystem as database, because we are going to manage living things. And so I think it's important to reflect and to adapt. So I think, I hope I was clear, but I would like to move for a more autonomous decision at farm level. So something that cannot drives in the millimeters every single act and decision of the farms, where farms are placed in a territory that is attractive, that could be inspiring for young, really entrepreneurs to live there for years, not only to start an activity, but to start an activity that can last decades. That's not like part of the story. And able to create communities and to support biodiversity also at livestock level, because I'm an animal science-based advisor. So it's animals for me can complete the cycle at all. So we have to think that the long-term innovation has just been done by a lot of farmers, and we have to manage relations, manage connections between the elements and between the farmers, because we have to create multiple benefits for all the actors involved, and not think about food production evaluated with a single indicator. So last word, don't overlap carbon farming with carbon credits. That are two absolutely different way of thinking about the system. One is a practice, and the other one is a financial instrument, and they have to have a dialogue, but they have not to be overlap. And I think that push for the idea that farmers are not passive. Past farmers, innovation already exists, and we try to innovate every day, but now it's the turn of the policies, thanks also to our involvement in that. So the policy co-production, policy co-creation could be a way of increasing this discussion. Can policies have to recognize and support the activities of farmers? So thank you very much.
Sorry, it was upside down. Let's try like that. And now the second half is the question and answer. So we're going to invite our guests up, Matthew, Jacopo, Katarina, Ev, but also we have a special guest also from Verditer, Alexander Cotin. He's an agricultural engineer who's focused his entire professional career on natural resources, land management, and promoting agroecology. Thank you for joining us. And so we're going to ask a few questions. So we heard about the alternatives to credits for restoring soil health. We heard about the revenue costs from Katarina and about the animal welfare aspects from Jacopo. But how can it enhance food sovereignty and territorial resilience, as well as sustainability? Who would want? Sorry, this is for any of you. I mean, if Katarina or Jacopo want to follow up on theirs, the rest of you can also contribute.
Thank you. Thank you. Very shortly. We were discussing with Jacopo before. Still, food production at global level is produced by 70% is produced by small farmers. So very often those small farmers are the ones who have not access to benefits. We know that distribution is of subsidies from PAC is very uneven. Those numbers of 20% of farmers receiving 80% of subsidies, good, yes or no, but it's unbalanced the way that those real custodians of our food security are not helped, rewarded. We must make an effort to reach those. If I would make a goal for the next PAC, I would say at least reach 35% of farmers. Very simple, you can monitor, but this amount of farmers should be increased because they are the one who produce locally, and all the statistics ignore the real contribution of small farmers to self-consumption. Working in FAO for years, I tried to have those statistics. Not FAO, not Eurostat gets how much people produce their own food. This is also very important, and it's part of the picture.
Maybe since the mic is coming here, I'll just add a quick comment. I think from my perspective, from looking at the data global situation, we don't have a food quantity production issue. We have much more a food accessibility issue, distribution issue. We have a huge food waste issue. I think 30% is lost somewhere along the value chain, sometimes in the first step of the value chain already. So I think just because I want to mention it because I think it was Jacopo in your presentation, you said, my first objective is producing food. I think that's a fair perspective as a farmer. I would add that it's my view that as a farmer, your land may be private and your company or your business might be a private business, but you are managing natural resources, which are a big part of the public good. The state of our soils, the state of our water, our biodiversity, it's a public good. So I think with the choice of being a farmer comes a responsibility, and that is, yes, to produce food, but also to take care of the natural resources.
Yeah, it's so difficult, like to manage a public good, but to be also recognized as a manager of a public good. So the acceptability and the social role of a farmers, you know that it's like declining at all in decades. So it's almost it was a shame. For example, my father came from my grandfather. My grandfather was involved in agriculture, and he gained money and let my father study and make university, and then he is now a retired professor, but that's it. So it's skip, no, the generation tradition and that. And so in order not to take people away from intense labor and work. And so I think also we have to start. I'm so happy also with the example that you mentioned during your presentation about like the situation of co-creation of knowledge and dissemination. I think is so important also for the farmers to keep them alive, but also to make them part of a network, and the other one not alone in their ivory tower that sometimes is blocked then inside the farm, but also trying to make a step also to the consumer, because I think it's an important part that what you mentioned. I think it's to reprioritize also the food choice at citizen level, not only consumer, citizen level. That is not semantic. So it's something important, because I said every time that from Neanderthal man till today, humanity, the time spent for searching food from 99% to 1%, I think we can figuring out some other ways to be more active and not to demand everything to other system, what is our fuel, and not only our fuel is something that is referred to very important ethical public good.
Thank you. I will follow to the public good, the territory approach, and the landscape level approach. I really think we need to organize food system, really relocalize food system. And as farmers, as are managing the territory, this kind of approach, really locally approach, we have some few examples in France, like you connect farmers with direct consumers, and more than that, you connect people living in the same territory. So they are, you put a face on your food, first of all. This is really important. And when you, well, you want to take care of your home, basically. If it happened on the other side of Europe or the world, it's more, it's harder to really get involved on protecting the environment, have really good food quality. When it's your neighbor, it's getting easier. And to organize food system, to have innovation, to motivate new farmers to get in, it must be local. And I totally agree that small farms are totally invisible in a really large scale vision, but they are the one shaping the territory, and they are the one connecting people. Food connects people, basically. So it's really important to change the scale, like use a fractal vision. I don't know, these forms will repeat and repeat and repeat, but you must act at really small scale and rebuild the connection the large scales have cut from each other, I think. And small farm are a really powerful possibility to do that.
Thank you. Another important part of question answers. Do we have any questions from the audience at the moment? We'll
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Good morning. It's Andrew Brewer from the UK. Great presentations. Very much appreciate them. Are we ethically right in looking at cutting livestock numbers when we have water in Northern Europe, where many other countries in the world are struggling for water? We have a sustainable system going forward. Should we not be looking at optimization of systems going forward? Not majorly intensively, but understanding systems. But we have to be ethically right for the rest of the world and just look outside and not take the big picture. Fully agree, but and we have to be realistic. A lot of the food is coming from larger producers that are supplying the growing urban population that are totally disconnected from food. Okay. We have had school visits with people, they do not realize that milk comes from a cow, eggs come from a chicken. The urban children, especially in the UK, have no idea where their food comes from. There is a total disconnection. So I think we need to remember our ability to produce food in Europe, and that's really important. And we can do that sensibly with carbon and increasing our soil health. And secondly, on forest, we're accounting for sequestration from trees growing above ground, but you will not, or there seems to be here over the last 2 days, total disconnection of growing carbon underneath the soil under our feet under permanent pasture, which can be equivalent to that timber above the ground. And there's total disconnect here, and we need to try and join that up. And so I'd like your comments, please.
It seems like you have people agreeing with you on the second question, so I will disagree with you on the first question. Right, so you mentioned we need to make sure that Europe, which has a sustainable system for livestock production, can contribute to feeding other places, both inside and outside of Europe, I assume you refer to. I have a couple of issues with that. First one is that Europe is not feeding the world at all. We are a net importer of calories. We are a net importer of proteins. We're a net importer of land. Our systems that we have in place, our livestock systems specifically that we have in place in Europe now, depend on massive areas of land outside of the EU. It is by no means a self-sustaining or sustainable system in terms of resource use, also not in terms of contributions to emissions, also not in terms of respect and care for animals. So I would already fundamentally disagree that the European system is a good model. Well, I'm saying we have a very diverse agricultural landscape, so I'm not talking about any type of livestock production, right? We have very, I think, good, respectful livestock production that is linked to the land, right? but that's not most livestock production. And that's why I think it was mentioned a couple of times, the consumption aspect is a really important one, because if we keep consuming animal products at the levels that we do now, not only is that a problem for our health, it is also a problem for sustaining our agricultural system, because we are so dependent on inputs that come from elsewhere. So no, Europe is not feeding the world, and we cannot keep the business as usual.
Reacting to your second question, that you are perfectly right. So it's a small, it's only a picture is an input that I would like to give you as a small project of 100,000 euros with 3 partners and nothing more. So only to inspect and to have an idea what happened, because even before we never know neither these aspects. So I know that carbon and in grassland is an important part. And in the picture that I mentioned, that I show you about the farm, there are some stripes that divide the wood, and there are fire breaks that have been managed as grassland till decades, and water ponds. So we rotate animals there, and so this is an important part also that can increase the differences between system, and have to be included in the model for sure. But it was only, I repeat, something, the starting point for more general and more science-based approach for sure.
So we've heard from farms and businesses. What should territories do differently if we want to take these alternative to credits or non-credit pathways seriously? Or counterpoint, what should they stop doing? Sorry, we'll pause that one and ask the audience.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information that was really great. Thanks, first of all, a lot to digest. I've taken lots of notes and pictures. But anyway, just one of the things that stuck out to me, that's why I was having trouble thinking of a question, because there was so much going on. Just completely agree with the whole carbon credit. That's crap. Just on its own is useless, waste of time. It's not going to work. I'm really skeptical. We work on it in Ireland, but what you were saying about carbon credits and the different aspects. So what we're looking at is, it has to be integrated. There's carbon, and there's biodiversity, and there's all the ecosystem services, and and there's also the farmers staying on the farm, because they can feed themselves. They can get enough money. So what does the panel think about that approach? Okay.
That approach looks like agroecology. So, yes. I take as I have it, to link back also to your question, can we think back of a public space? Because we have on one hand policies, and we have on the other hand the private sector. And we are delegating more and more, a lot of things, very often the one that we don't know exactly how to regulate, to the private sector. But the famous public goods that you are talking about are in the middle, and we should not give up this public space. And this public space is very difficult to handle at global level or European level. That's why we struggle, but it is much easier to tackle at territorial level. So at territorial level, people can get together. There is a lot of communal land that can be grazed very often, but there is a lot of public activities that can be financed or can be organized at territorial level with a push from territorial policies that protect this public space and enhance it, give value to it. It's okay, the private sector, but the public sector that gives benefit to all of us is there, and we should protect it and enhance it to benefit all the players that live in the same territory.
To react on both question I really agree with that, and there is some mechanism at regional or national level in France, at least, um, that allow you to go out of only carbon credit. There is one payment for environmental services. There were a presentation yesterday in this room about this kind of system created at regional level, for example, in France, between the water agency and farmers on a watershed management level. And the water agency will pay farmers if they put, I will take like a really practical example, cover crop around the area where the water agency is taking the tap water, so they can work on water quality. And farmers are paid to protect the water quality through agronomical practice. It exists also the group GI2E, group of interest, group of environmental and economical interest. So these are group of farmers that join together. They are so they can work on a specific problematic at really regional level, erosion, how to implement a local market to sell their products, how to construct or how to build local shop within different farmers, so they can all send the product, their different product in the same shop, and they can do put shops where the the urban area where there is no services, for example, like or services for food like supermarket or stuff like that, and they take back the space, the public space, actually at really local level. And it's working well because they can sell their product the right price because there is no intermediary. It's self-managed. They can sell the product the right price, so they need less subsidy and they can live basically from their work. They produce food, they sell food. I can live with that. I don't need somebody to pay me to steal farm, basically, which for me it's a major problem. I mean, this is not normal that we can't live from our job, only our job, and we need extra money to do the job, which is the base of everything, like producing food. We don't have food, we can't do anything more, I think. But there is some really local initiative that are growing, and I think they are growing faster in space where there is no services, and cooperation is growing where there is a lack of resources, and I think it's a good thing also sometimes when you don't have the intervention of the larger scale. I will call it that way.
Thanks. Maybe it's a bit outside the scope of what we're talking about, but you were talking about the common good and everything, so it just kind of triggered something in me there. Sorry, in a good way, not in a, I'm not going to have a psychotic attack or anything. Yeah, just what we see, because we're working with farmers a lot, okay, doing great work, but there's a complete disconnect between, well, everyone, pretty much, departments of agriculture, departments of environment, farm advisors, policy. It's all, and this is what we're talking about here, and this is all amazing, but this is urgent, right? Mathieu, you showed us, look, it's not good, right? So this needs a huge thing, so that's why I'm saying maybe it's a bit outside the scope of this, but I'm just wondering, is there any thoughts on how the hell we're gonna get that collective effort? And I think it has to center around something like the public goods and that the common lands or whatever it is, but that's just absent, and we don't have time. So again, I don't want to put a panic attack on anyone, but I'm just wondering, is there any thoughts about how we're going to upscale all the great work like what Ver de Terre and Jacopo and that are doing, and yeah, now, so I'm not doing integrated carbon credits, I'm doing agroecology. That's good. Good to know.
Yeah, it's a slightly different topic, but maybe you can connect it. So I'm Isadora. I work for Nature's Pride, which does something that goes a little bit against what you're saying here because it's not local. We import fruit and vegetables from Europe to the Netherlands, but also a lot from Latin America, huge volumes, sometimes big farms, sometimes smallholders. But we also want to do the right thing. We want to move the needle. I see, I know the problems. The farmers also, like our growers also notice, of course, climate change and everything happening. But the issue is a bit like I would like to know from you, what do you think would help them the most? Like from our role as a buyer, we don't own the fields, but we do want to sort of level up. Like if you look at the levels of that you presented, level 1 and 2 are easy. Most of our growers are doing that. We can still do a little bit more, but to go to level 3, where they reimagine how their farms are run, that can be very tricky. And I'm not sure, do they need more knowledge, our advice, or maybe connected to financial incentive? But carbon credits, I have the last few days not really been convinced that's mature enough. So I'm kind of struggling, and I would love to hear like what would be like the first step.
Well, if it's possible, react a little bit at the first question, mainly that what I can recall collect with some that I mentioned briefly during my presentation, that is the involvement of farmers in policy makings. That sometimes that we are seeing that the major driver are the number of animals, the concentration of animals in some areas, and you mentioned also that with your question before, and so we think about large scale system that can export and can make non-profitability for all member states, and visibility in marketing strategies, advisory, and also can collect like money also from external parts. And so maybe the representative of the system, lifestyle system, are categories that works in that direction. And that's it. So the voice of the farmers are not inside the discussion. So maybe, if you disagree, perfect, but maybe to have a higher voice in the discussion in order to be part of the new way of managing NASCAP could be a first important pillar for like putting some question marks, some doubts, and to tailor also the future cap measures, also including this kind of farming system that is representative as a number of farmers. Please.
Yeah, I'm also going to stay on that question. I'm sorry. I hope someone can come to you. Good, very good. Sorry. I agree. I would make the nuance that the voices of some farmers, types of farmers, representatives are very present in the debate, and I think that is actually a part of the issue. It's a very unbalanced, unfair representation of certain visions coming from an agribusiness, industrial kind of background. Those visions are very well represented at policy level. I work in Brussels. I work on EU policy, so I see it multiple times a week. It's very present, and those are the voices that reach the policymakers. There's a lot of vested interests there in keeping things the way they are and going for those incremental changes to be able to keep going, but not having to change or question the overall production consumption model. So that is the kind of situation and the reason why things are not really changing. So I think many of us here are probably spending a lot of our hours and energy on trying to change these things and coming up with better solutions, better through projects, through policy work, through maybe our own actions as private citizens as well, where what we choose to consume, where we choose to spend our money. I think the big one, probably the biggest impact besides where we decide to dedicate our time and energy, the biggest impact we can have is voting. Voting for politicians, parties that actually are committed to changing this, because it is the right thing to do and not to protect certain vested interests. I think that is probably if there's a single action that we can take, that is probably what we should be focusing on.
Still 2 years for the next election. Okay. So, no, okay, and not in our also, very soon a referendum coming. Difficult and complex question. I don't know if you are talking about importing oranges from Chile out of season, or you are importing soybean from Brazil to feed animals in the Netherlands. So the answers are pretty different. Okay. Avocado. Okay. Easier than soybean. Let's say many different possibilities, but we have a number in Italy that a farmer gets 7% of final cost that the consumer pays. I'm pretty sure it's quite similar in all the other countries, 7 towards the rest. And then we go back to a word that you said about ethic. Okay, do we really think the consumers are so desperate that they cannot take into consideration an ethical component when they buy? So maybe working around this ethical idea and trying to find out the real money that your avocado producer gets. Of course, then you have the transport, you have the risk, you have all the other things. But can you try, because this would reassure your customer if you would say, I'm not talking about certification, trade and things like that, but we are taking care in this avocado of the well-being and the well-being of the natural resources in the countries where you buy it from. Okay, and it's quite an attractive message, I think. Okay, the other thing, as I have the microphone, we spoke a lot about Mercosur. And going back to agroecology, we have very clear concept of agroecology in Europe. We have strong agroecology links, as I was showing you, in Latin America, in Asia, and also some part of Asia, in Africa, sorry. Why don't we introduce this complex concept of agroecology in our trade, international trade relations, in our Miro clauses? Okay, sorry, it's thinking very high, but the same principles apply to the different continents. Can we try to adopt them in thinking of import and export? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have 1 minute left. So first, raise your hand if you were here for the opening keynote speaker on Tuesday. Okay. So it was brilliantly said, but it was a little pessimistic. 2140, we're going to hit 2 degrees raised, 2040, 2 degrees, and 2100, 4 degrees raised, I believe. So can I get one person give me some optimism? Yes, I want to hear something optimistic.
I work in Brussels politics. I cannot be optimistic at this moment.
I work in a fucking rural countryside. I cannot be optimistic, but no, I'm joking. From a farmer's point of view, the optimistic view is that I'm here now, and I've been advocating the same topic for more than 25 years. And I'm seeing the increasing of interest in our practices, our way of like managing privately the land as a common good. And it's not farmers washing, it's something more, something different sometimes. So I have to be scared where to be grouped. But if we have some filters now, we can have access to an amplification and dissemination of our voices, our ideas, to be part of a broader network that, trust me, 25 years ago was absolutely not present. So in this light, I think there is a room for making something more linked one each other and including the right from our point of view, I'm not judging, but the right for me, researchers, policymakers, civil servants, and farmers for creating something that could be more stable, more that can reinforce dissemination. So in this light, I think I'm absolutely positive. Then there are a lot of uncertainties as well, as you mentioned. even I'm not Brussels based, but that's it.
What I could add to that is that I think the younger generations are also very open-minded about what's going on in the world, and the fact that it's also our world and the one we want to grow in. So we really want to make a change and live a life that is actually affordable and comfortable for us and the future as well. So we are aware of that, and a lot of us really want to make a change and have a work that have a sense towards that in changing the world in a better, to make a better place. So I think that's is something to keep in mind and to not forget.
Thank you very much. Can we get an clap? And if I'm correct, the next session should be the plenary. But I mean, I think some of us will be here an extra couple minutes if you want to have some quick conversations, but, or also, of course, during coffee, reach out and look for us. Thank you.